Good evening.
Good evening.
I hereby call this August the 13th meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. First order of business, I do want to apologize that the Finance Committee ran over just a little bit. So to all those who had to wait, thanks for your patience, and we'll move forward as quickly as possible. Before we begin, I always like to recognize thank all of the city staff who helped to make what we do very tolerable in the city. They do a lot of good work, so thank you to the city staff. I want to thank you to all the citizens who came out. I give honor to our police chief, Chief Thompson, who is here representing the brave men and women of the police department. I give honor to Chief Mayo, who is not here, but we're joined by Assistant Chief Harry Brown, who's here representing the men and women of our fire department. August Vernon is our new emergency management director. He is not here. Today we have Mr. Robert Reese here from emergency management, so thank you for being here today. The consent agenda is 5 items on the consent agenda. We have 1 item on the general agenda, so we can move through this fairly quickly. Members of the committee, are there any items on the consent agenda that we should consider? If there are no items that we need to pull, I entertain a motion. Councilman Larson is recognized.
I would like some information on handicap parking. I forgot which number that is. 4.
That's item C4. We'll pull that. Is there a motion for the balance?
Motion to approve the balance.
Is there a second? It's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor of approving the balance, please vote yes. Opposers, vote no. That is unanimous. Item C4, please.
Item C4, ordinance designating on-street handicap parking space in the city's downtown area.
Giving us a report, would that be Ms. McCullough or Mr. DeCane? Ms. McCullough is recognized, our Director of Transportation. Councilman Larson, do you have specific questions, or would you like a presentation?
Well, I think it's mostly comments at this point. These are 4 additional spaces. Is that right? Basically on Trade Street.
On 2 different streets. There's 2 on Trade and 2 on Liberty.
2 on Liberty, excuse me, that's right. And these are at the request of the owners of the property that are adjacent to or front these.
Yes.
These requests were not generated. Last series that we did, the city staff and everybody sort of generated a parking plan for handicap accessibility in the downtown. And if we added, and so this is the first time in the downtown area we've really added spaces, but this is at the initiative of the merchants themselves who are requesting this service in front of their buildings.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir. We take the request of the merchants and we consider what's in the existing area and make a recommendation as far as the improvements that would be necessary. The parking spaces would not just be open to individuals visiting those areas, but it would be open to anyone who is handicapped that needs to park in those spaces.
Well, my question always is, the impact to the merchants that these go in proximity to, and it's a plus and minus, and it's clearly that we have 2 merchants that are anxious to accommodate this audience, and I'm very pleased to hear this.
Yes.
Councilman McIntosh.
We also added 2 spaces on West 5th Street, and that again was in conjunction with the owners of the property whose clientele this definitely helped. So I think the way this has been going has worked out well. There's been hand-in-hand merchants in the
working this through. I'm very pleased the way this program's unfolding, and I know we had a lot of discussion earlier with it, but it seems to find its own rhythm now, and I'm very pleased with that. Thank you. I move approval of that item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman McIntosh, did you finish your comments?
I did.
We have a motion, a proper second. All in favor, please. Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
To make it aware that was one of Councilman Larson's initiatives to talk about handicap parking.
Here. And thank you for that as well. Any additional comments? Motion is second. All in favor, please vote yes. Opposers have the ability to vote no. And that is unanimous. So we have completed the consent agenda, and we will now move to our single item on the general agenda, which is a presentation from Moms Demand Action. We all know that gun violence in the city of Winston-Salem is something that we do not want. In any city, it's terrible. We have not seen the types of gun violence that other major cities are seeing. However, it is an issue. So we will start with our police chief, and I imagine we will then kick it to Moms Demand Action. Chief Thompson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. Mayor Pro Tem, Vice Chair McIntosh, and members of the council, I am here to introduce to you Ms. Julie Fritz. Ms. Julie Fritz is a local volunteer coordinator with Moms Demand Actions for Gun Sense in America. Ms. Fritz lives here in Winston-Salem with her family And during her upcoming presentation, Mrs. Fritz will provide information on the Moms Demand Action Be Smart campaign, as well as community programs available to prevent gun violence in Winston-Salem. Mrs. Fritz.
Ms. Fritz, as you come forward, if you give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Julie Fritz. My address is 2671 Amesbury Road, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27103. Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. So, like I said, my name is Julie Fritz. I'm the local volunteer coordinator for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I got involved with moms after the Parkland shooting. I grew up about 20 minutes from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. I spent a lot of time at that school doing different sports and athletic activities growing up. And my niece and nephew both attended high school where I did. For the first time, this just hit too close to home for me. I have 2 children. One is 4 and one is 18 months. And they're going to go to school in this community. I could no longer stand by and let this conversation go on without me. And so I decided I was going to help make my community safer. America's gun homicide rate is more than 25 times the average of other developed countries. That's 3.6 per 100,000 residents. In Winston-Salem in 2017, there were 25 homicides. 20 of those were due to gun violence. Moms Demand Action is a member of Everytown for Gun Safety. Everytown is a movement of Americans working together to end gun violence and build safer communities. The voices of Everytown are Moms Demand Action, Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and the Everytown Survivor Network. Everytown manages these groups on a national level and does research about gun violence to provide strategies for change. Moms Demand Action has 3 missions. We support a survivor network across the nation. We implement Be Smart for Kids as a program for gun safety education. And we talk to our community about legislative action related to gun violence. What do we stand for? Moms Demand Action is a nonpartisan grassroots movement of American mothers demanding new, stronger gun laws to protect children and families. We are not anti-gun, we are anti-gun violence. We believe that respecting rights and protecting people go hand in hand. This is what we advocate for, to promote gun safety so our children and communities will no longer be at an unacceptable level of risk, to close deadly loopholes in our background check system that allow dangerous people like felons, domestic abusers, and terrorists easy access to guns. We support reasonable limits on when, where, and how loaded guns are carried and used in public spaces, and we aim to create enforceable laws to address gun trafficking and fraudulent purchases to keep illegal guns off of our streets. This is how we do it. We're in your community. We host events in the community for different sectors of people. We table events at community events, like we'll set up a table and discuss our agenda. We have a local chapter. We have meetings on the 2nd Tuesday of every month. We support all survivors of gun violence in our community. We work to integrate gun safety education in our community. And we also educate members and the community on legislative action and candidates. There are gun safety education programs available to assist our community in becoming safer. Be Smart is an adult-focused Moms Demand Action program, and Know the Signs is a child-focused Sandy Hook Promise program. Sandy Hook Promise and Moms Demand Action are not connected, but are complementary grassroots organizations with similar missions. They provide free, flexible, out-of-the-box programs for schools and communities. Every year, 300 children aged 17 and under gain access to a gun and unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else. More than 500 more die by suicide. Most of these deaths are preventable with responsible gun storage and gun safety education. Be Smart is a Moms Demand Action program that encourages parents, gun owners, and non-gun owners alike to be smart and take these simple steps. Secure guns in homes and vehicles. Model responsible behavior. Ask about unsecured guns in other homes. Recognize the risks of teen suicide. And tell your peers to be smart. The child-focused programs are available from Sandy Hook Promise. Sandy Hook Promise is committed to driving and sustaining positive change that results in the protection of children from gun violence through prevention. 95 people die every day from gun violence. 6 of these people are under 18. That means 34,668 people die each year, and 2,277 are under 18. Sandy Hook is making an impact. 3,500,000 children have seen these programs. 51,000 Promise leaders have been trained. 192 community-based organizations are using these programs. In our own community, Guilford County has implemented these programs in schools county-wide. We can add to these numbers in our community. We can do something in Winston-Salem to get our people to see these programs too. Know the Signs is the general umbrella program of all the programs available through Sandy Hook. It's a no-cost, out-of-the-box educational program for kids with the end goal of preventing gun violence. These trainings aim to stop school shootings, prevent cases of self-harm, and reduce bullying. So let's talk about what we can do together. Can we make gun violence a priority in our community? Can we work together to make Winston-Salem an example across the state? What can you do to help us get these programs into the community? And we'd love to hear suggestions or questions.
Yeah, Ms. Fritz, I guess the first question that we have, first of all, thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
So if we have any citizens in this community that might be interested in partnering or learning more about the Sandy Hook Promise or the Be Smart program, how can they access the liaisons to the program or anybody who's affiliated with it?
I would say, both of the programs are very open online. You can Google them and find them. But here in Winston-Salem, Moms Demand Action meets every second Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock at Knollwood Baptist Church. We would welcome any of you to come. I know Dan has been at some of our events. We also host events, so that's another way for people to meet up with us. We're working in the community right now with Big Brothers Big Sisters. We've partnered with Lamaya Williams, who is their lead over there, and we're hoping to implement some of the programs with them starting in January. Misty Nichols and myself have been working to talk to Forsyth County Schools to try to get the Sandy Hook Promise programs in there. We've hit some roadblocks, but being able to communicate with Guilford County on how they've implemented the programs has started to make a difference for us. But yeah, definitely coming to a meeting is a great first place to start.
All right, so at this time, Ms. Fritz, we'll entertain questions and comments from the committee and the council members. We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
Thank you. I just want to compliment you and thank you all for your volunteers.
Thank you.
This city needs all the partners we can have. And we've been fortunate so far not to have as many problems as some other cities, but we pray each and every day because we never know when things like that will happen. I was concerned when you mentioned that Guilford County had a program, and then you mentioned a little bit about the school system, their participation. Did they give you any hope that maybe they would join with you with this process?
We've had, Misty has reached out, and she may be able to speak on this better than I can, but we've reached out a lot to different places in the school. We're trying to find where we can get the information. I don't know, Misty, can you tell us about who specifically you've spoken to?
Misty, if you'd come to the podium and give your name and address for the record.
Hi, Misty Nichols, 3211 Blenheim Place, 27106. So we've been in communication with the Director of Security starting a couple of years ago before I joined Moms Demand Action and before I became a Promise leader with Sandy Hook Promise. We were then directed to Dr. Symington to have some communication with him. We did have one of his team members come to a Wear Orange event and participate in the Be Smart program.
Is that Michael
Pesh, I believe. So we have had some communication, but there's been a lot of back and forth, and we haven't really been able to get in front of Dr. Symington, who we're told is responsible for implementation of the programs. When we spoke to Dr. Frederica Stokes in Guilford County, she's his counterpart, we were really impressed at the way they spoke, or the way that she had administrative support top down and just made it happen countywide. We're hoping for the same thing and to set that type of example in Winston-Salem.
Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
Yeah, well, it's really, to me, to have tried to speak to Dr. Simonton has not gotten, seemed like, anyway, we're with him. But now, if I were you, being women in this community and your taxpayers, county and city taxpayers, I would go to the top.
Okay.
And I used to work for the school system, and sort of to hear you say it's like a struggle to get to talk to somebody, the superintendent ought to be the very first one, and she ought to have her arms out, grateful that you have some volunteers that are interested. Now, I would also go, you see us sitting up here. When people want to get something done, they know that they come to us, and we speak to the city manager, and we move things. This is just too important of what you're talking about, because things happen just like that.
We agree.
Thank you, Ms. Hart, and
Yeah.
that's why we're here.
Now, go to the
That's why
school
we're here.
board. Go.
Well, we've talked to several school board members. We went to one of their forums. We have, what else was I going to say?
We've tried to go through NCAE.
We were just trying to
figure find
out the
in.
right individuals
Yeah.
to help us. So this started for me. My son is at Jefferson Middle, and they had like a social media event where school was closed, and it just kind of sparked my thinking and about all of this. And that's when I talked to Jonathan Wilson, and it's been again a couple years. And on my initial email, I copied Dr. Emery for the first several, and did not receive response.
I hope their ears will open up, and
We
their
hope so,
eyes
too.
can see, ears can hear. It's too important to ignore.
And we are frustrated, but we are not finished.
And
Well-
I don't
We
run
will
the
keep
school board,
going.
but as a taxpayer, I still can speak.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's
Well,
right.
I'm glad you ladies came and spoke to us. What I'm committed to do as the chairman of the committee is to try to connect you to somebody in the school system who can help to assist you. School system has been a great partner to the city, to the county, to the state, and maybe your emails got lost in the wash. I happen to personally know someone who's on the school board, and I sleep with her every night. And so, in a positive way, and I'll make sure I'll do my best to try to get you connected.
Excellent.
Councilmember Larson,
No, no,
I saw your hand first.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm very action-oriented here, and the council, I think, always looks for definite goals and products that we can generate. And Chief Thompson knows that I have a complete dislike of storage of guns that we have in our warehouse, of weapons that have been elements in in perpetration of a crime, and issues like that. And I'm particularly interested, within the agendas that you've laid forward, if you have specific pieces of legislation or specific tangible actions that you think that this city could implement that would directly impact the availability or the use or anything dealing with weapons and the use of weapons in crimes, not only at schools, which of course is incredibly in front of us in the last few months, but generally, and we've seen within this city, what now, Chief, 17 crimes that have occurred, murders that have occurred using a pistol or a weapon of some sort, or not even a unarmed weapon. And I'm curious, how we struggle with this, because we need to find ways to educate, certainly, safe handling of weapons, educate the youth. The violence in our community is a huge issue, and I'm sorry other council members here aren't talking about how do we actually reduce violence. I think our chief and police have done an outstanding job of getting out into the community and engaging the public in making them aware of the police as their friends and engaging them in a way that is very, very positive, and we've actually gotten some national recognition for that. But, and I guess I would ask Chief Thompson a little bit the question about the specific issue of guns in homes and the securing of those weapons, or the handling of those weapons, or the teaching of our youth how to deal with the issue of weapons in homes, and whether that is an integral part of our public education program, or whether whether there's other specific things that you would recommend to us sitting here today that you would like to see us begin to address?
Chief Thompson, you got the floor.
Thank you. Just to basically answer your question, I think anything that we can do to help educate our public on gun safety, there's no such thing as over-educating when we're talking about safety and saving lives. So anything that we can do together with our agency and some of our nonprofit organizations in our community, I think would help. Unfortunately, I have to say that based on the 17 homicides that you've mentioned, sir, here in Winston-Salem, it had nothing to do with gun safety in terms of someone not properly handling or knowing how to use it. These were intentional acts of violence that occurred. And so, which again is a totally another issue. But in terms of just helping to educate or further working with other partners in our community, I think there's never too much that we can do. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I know we're restricted by state laws in matters of public carry and all of those kinds of issues that make guns available, readily available in the case of a confrontation of some sort. And I don't know how, that's a whole nother discussion.
And before I recognize Mr. Bessie, Ms. Fritz, I think I interrupted you before you started to speak. Did you want to specifically address something that Councilmember Larson has said?
I did, yes.
Okay, please, you have the floor.
Two suggestions that we've talked about as a Moms Demand Action Group. One would be a buyback program as a way to get some guns out of places they don't belong. That might be a good way to remove guns from places that they shouldn't be. Another is the Be Smart program that I've been talking about. That we cannot expect children to be responsible for their own gun safety. That's not possible and ridiculous. So training adults to keep guns safe and lock them up, keep ammo separate, is the best way to do that. And implementing the Be Smart program, which is adult-focused, in community events that go on, or partnering with the Public Safety Committee and linking us with people that want to see this program, will, I think, be a good start.
Do we do anything with trigger locks or anything like that? Do we have a program of?
We give locks out. Our program gives
You give
Correct.
locks out free.
If someone needs a gun lock, we can get you one
Okay.
today.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Mr. Manager, do you want to address?
I was just going to note that I believe we have a partnership already with one of our rec centers coming up, at Rupert Bell Rec Center.
Yeah.
And I think that's one area we could expand that. We have all those recreation centers. They're all underutilized. And here's a natural platform where we could partner with them with the police department and moms to step up our education of adults and teens.
And Ms. Fritz, we'll continue to work on our partnerships. And just for the record, I want to say that over the last few years, we have had a few gun buyback programs.
Great.
There are folks who challenge the legitimacy of them, but we have gotten a lot of guns off the streets, and there are people sort of wrapped around the corner to turn them in. So they've been somewhat successful, and I imagine we'll continue to evaluate them as we move forward. Councilman Bessie.
Yeah. Clearly, there are regulatory items that can help the background check loopholes to be closed, for example. But those have to be addressed at the state and
Right.
federal legislative levels. We have been handcuffed by preemption from the state level. Anything we can do, regulatory approaches locally. What I was impressed by, and why I encouraged Mr. Chairman, and thank you, to invite the MOMS program in to present on was particularly the adult education program, the Be Smart effort. Because when you look at some of the specific types of gun violence that we see, they originate with guns in the home that have not been securely stored. Most of the guns that are taken to school are acquired at home, unsecured guns. Child accidents. It seems like every month we have a different tragedy in the news of a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old who finds the gun in the home, no matter where it is hidden, when company's over, and treated as a toy, and someone is seriously injured or killed. Often another of the children in the family or a visiting family. And teen suicide, the stats are appalling there. 90% of the teens who attempt suicide by other methods than a gun are unsuccessful, and that's their only attempt. You know, that their family hears that as the cry for help that it is, and there's intervention, and it's not repeated. But 90% of the suicide attempts with guns by teenagers are successful, and then there is no opportunity after that. So the safe storage approach is one key non-regulatory option that we can promote with education at the local level. Could you talk a little bit more about how safe storage in the home can be done and how it makes a difference?
Ms. Fritz.
Yeah, I mean, the Be Smart program itself just promotes that people keep guns unloaded, that they're kept stored separately from ammo, and that they always have a lock. We give out those locks and we provide this information to them. So I think that, you know, as a parent, this program also talks to other parents, you know, teaches you how to talk to other parents. So to me, when my 4-year-old goes to a play date and I have to call someone and say, hey, Weldon's coming over, you know, do you have guns in your home? Like, that's an awkward conversation. This program makes it less awkward. It teaches you how to have those conversations. So it's not just about keeping the gun safe, but it also is about like talking to our community and making it a more open conversation. So to me, the more parents that I see in the community have this program, the easier those conversations become, and the safer all of our children are going to be. Does that kind of answer what you're asking, Dan?
It does. And basically the point being that you can have a gun in the home, but you can store it safely, and then your kids and visiting kids and teenagers will be safe from the unsecured loaded weapon. Doesn't matter where you hide it.
Yeah, they can. My 4-year-old can find anything, and he will. You know, and that's just truth. And we, like I said before, we cannot expect children to be responsible for their own gun safety. That's not how this works. It's about adults making right decisions and being responsible and modeling that responsible behavior.
Well said. Councilman Bessie, have you finished your comments?
Yes, that was the point I wanted to underscore and emphasize. That there is an educational program available that is not regulatory in nature, that is aimed at, the regulatory approaches, but that's separate.
Right.
Separate conversation. This is available now. It can be offered in terms of the specific. You know, I saw a couple of times, once locally and once at a National League of Cities conference, the conversation step by step. You have volunteers who are modeling how you have the discussion. There are specific discussions of why the recommended safe storage steps are important. Why, finding that perfect hiding place isn't enough. Why just locking it most of the time in a drawer loaded is not enough. Why you have to take the various steps, and it's still accessible to the homeowner, the gun owner, but not to people that they don't want, the kids and the visiting kids they don't want at that.
And like I said before, too, we're not anti-gun. We're anti-gun violence. We believe people have the right to have guns. That changes the conversation, I think.
I'm glad you pointed that out. When I first learned about the program,
I heard about you.
yeah, well, I'm an honest guy,
I appreciate that.
So thank you for coming and clearing the air. And if I had, sort of that misconception, there might be others who might have had it as well.
When
But
we say gun, a lot of people just shut down. That's not what we're trying to do. We need to be open about this conversation and get it out in our community.
I want to recognize a very, very patient Councilman McIntosh.
My nature. Thank you for the hard work that you're doing, and thank you for not just throwing your hands up and saying it's too big a problem to solve. This, to me, the methodology of it is brilliant because it is non-political, it's non-partisan, it's not about whether you support guns or don't support guns. It's simple, straightforward steps to do, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. And that's really good common ground on a topic that's really hard to find common ground on.
Agreed.
So props on that.
Thank you.
I want to echo something that Ms. Burke said, was that while we have low incidence of the kind of problems that you're talking about now, all that goes away when one incident happens. So it's that kind of tragedy. Guilford County being able to do this and us being unable to do it should spark something.
Agree.
We're all about
Thank you.
regionalism and partnership.
I mean, they're not
But
better than us.
We,
Of course not.
No, of course
we're a
not.
competitive bunch here, and so I think that using that a little bit could help. Hopefully, this shines more light on what you're doing and pick some people up and get some people involved. Like I said, I think just the nature of it, the fact that it's something that I think is easy to get on board with, is going to pay dividends, and I really welcome the work that you're doing, and look to help however I can.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments at this time?
Well, you,
Mr. Larson, then Mr. Bessie.
you seem to have converted one gun holder right here on this panel. But I would recommend, and I applaud. I honestly thank you for the effort, the time, and your enthusiasm for this topic and dealing with it. You need to talk to the gun holders. You need to go out to the shooting ranges. You need to find out, because those audiences, as you say, are going to be resistant. The message that you're carrying is one of personal safety and their own well-being of their children, of their wives and family, and sons and daughters and husbands. So I think as you pursue this, and we're glad to help. I'm asking for very specific goals, and you've given me a couple of them. But I think also realizing that where the gun holders are, that you can go to them and tell your stories and lay out their options of how to improve their own well-being. And I think that would be a very useful thing that you can do, that our police can also help do as well in our own training sessions, and we'll back you up on all of that as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Councilman Bessie.
Yeah, just one other note. In addition to things that are clearly and obviously traceable to unsecured guns in the home, the accidents and suicides, the guns taken to school, we don't know how many of the stolen guns on the street originally came from the home of a legal purchaser who didn't have it properly secured. The teenage friend of somebody visiting in the home found it, took it away, and 2 or 3 swaps later, it's used for a homicide on the street by some other teenager. So this can even help address that part of the problem.
Well, I want to sort of bring this thing to a conclusion by saying, again, I think I agree with Mr. McIntosh, and I agree with everybody. This isn't a Democratic or Republican issue. As a Democrat, I am a proud gun owner. I've known Republicans on the other side of the fence that are not. So this isn't a partisan issue. I'm glad you're nonpartisan. You took the time to come here and sort of talk a little bit about what you do and your goals and objectives for the city. Without further ado, I do want to recognize all those members of Moms Demand Action who are in the room. And if you don't mind, members of the committee, if you would please stand and be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it.
And as far as next steps are concerned, I'll make sure that you have my phone number. We'll do our best to sort of be a good partner and connect you to the school system. If there's anything else we need to be doing in the interim, please feel free to let us know. It sounds like this committee and the majority of the council is in support of the work that you do. And so thank you for what you do for our city.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful week.
You too. Members of the committee, there was only one item on the general agenda. Is there any further business that should be considered for the good of the order? It appears that there are no members of the community that are signed up to speak. Seeing nothing further, we'll hereby consider this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you.